In May 2013, Valery Rozov stepped to the edge of Chang's at 7220 meters on the Everest massif in Tibet. Years earlier, he had already completed a wingsuit base jump from Amun Brakk in Pakistan in 2004 and from Cerro Torre in Patagonia in 2008. Later, he would leap from Cho Oyu at 7,700 meters in 2016 and die on Ama Dablam in 2017. His jumps pushed altitude records. Each project moved to higher, more remote terrain. Let's follow how he turned technical alpinism and base jumping into a high-altitude project watched worldwide. By 1993 in Russia, Valery Rozov was training as a competitive skydiver near Moscow after growing up in Gorky. He studied at a technical institute while spending weekends at airfields, repeating jumps to refine exits and canopy control. Regular competition appearances followed across Russia and Europe, turning local training into international travel. He built up thousands of descents from aircraft over these years. That volume mattered. Those jumps built reliable, repeatable skills. Every flight depended on strict procedure to manage basic skydiving risk. Around 1999, at international parachuting events in Europe, Rozov won major titles in sky surfing and freefall disciplines. Judges scored complex rotations and precise landings under tight time limits. Results lists placed his name at the top more than once, including again in 2003. These events still used aircraft and organized landing zones. Success brought invitations to special projects and demonstration jumps, moving him from national to international circles. Competitive pressure hardened his procedures. He treated every run as practice for more complex objectives. The contests became focused preparation for future expeditions and higher-risk jumps. By the early 2000s in European mountain areas, his focus shifted from aircraft exits to cliffs and big walls. Base jumping rules were stricter. Single parachute, lower altitudes, minimal margin for error. Training camps in European mountains introduced him to technical rock and mixed climbing needed to reach remote exit points. He started combining alpine routes with low-altitude base jumps to test gear and decision-making. It was a deliberate transition period. These years connected skydiving with serious alpinism. Ground proximity made any mistake immediately dangerous. On 22 July 2004, Rozov completed the first wingsuit base jump from Amun Brakk in Pakistan's Karakoram range. The team climbed the steep granite tower, then fixed ropes to reach the chosen exit point near the top. After checking wind and communication, he launched in a wingsuit and opened his parachute over the valley below. Reports later described a clean deployment and controlled landing from a very exposed wall. This jump marked his entry into very remote big walls. It showed high-grade climbing linked directly to base on a major big wall. The altitude and isolation were significant. In February 2008, he targeted Cerro Torre in Patagonia, a peak known for severe weather and complex ice formations. The expedition climbed the mountain and waited for a short stable window before deciding to jump. From a high point on the tower, Rozov performed the first wingsuit base jump there. Witness accounts noted the narrow landing zone on the glacier below. Again, climbing and jumping merged into one operation. The project demanded careful timing on a difficult peak and reinforced his high wall focus. Conditions left little room for delay. Around 2009 in the Caucasus, Rozov jumped from Mount Elbrus after an ascent with a small team. The exit point near 4,650 meters marked a European high for his base career and aligned with an emerging Seven Summits concept. He began to define each continent's highest suitable peak as a potential objective. Elbrus came first in this sequence. The pattern was clear. Technical climbs would be paired with single, highly planned descents focused on altitude. Each expedition linked mountaineering routes with one decisive jump at serious altitude. In December 2010, an expedition reached Olavtoppen in Queen Maud Land, Antarctica. After completing the alpine route to the 2931 meters summit in extreme cold, Rozov prepared for a wingsuit base jump from the peak. Wind checks and timing were critical because of remote rescue options and limited daylight. He jumped from near the summit and landed on the ice field below. Later coverage emphasized how isolated the site was. This mission extended his work to polar terrain. Rescue access there was especially limited. On 25 May 2012, in India's Garhwal Himalaya, he made the first base jump from the summit region of Shivling at about 6420 meters. The team established camps on the mountain, fixing lines over steep ice and rock to secure the route. Near the top, Rozov selected an exit slightly below the summit to ensure a clear flight path. He launched in a wingsuit and landed on the glacier. This mission tested his procedures above 6,000 meters. The approach was systematic and cautious, matching the mountain's steep profile. The Everest Massive project peaked on 5 May 2013 when he jumped from Chanks, the northern peak, at 7,220 meters. After a 4-day climb on the north side, his team established an exit point on a rocky ledge above the Rongbuk Glacier. He stepped off in a specialized wingsuit, flew along the face, and opened his parachute more than 1,000 meters lower. At the time, it set a world record. This jump drew global attention to his methods and high-altitude goals. The combination of height and exposure was unmatched for him then. In February 2015, Rozov completed the first base jump from Mount Kilimanjaro's western breach wall in Tanzania. The team ascended to Uchuru Peak and then traversed to an exit around 5,460 meters. Thin air reduced canopy performance, so calculations for opening height were conservative. They checked these numbers repeatedly at altitude. After one jump, he landed near high-altitude camps on the mountain. Reports called it the first successful wingsuit flight from Kilimanjaro. Africa was now included in his high summit list. This added Africa to his list of high peaks. On 5 October 2016, Cho Oyu on the Tibet-Nepal border became his next record site. After a 21-day expedition and acclimatization schedule, Rozov reached a 7,700 meters exit point on the mountain's flank. He launched in a wingsuit, flew for roughly 90 seconds, and deployed his canopy onto a glacier. This altitude surpassed his earlier Chanks mark. It set a new recorded altitude for his jumps. The jump strengthened his reputation in high-altitude base history and continental projects. It also confirmed that his equipment and procedures worked in very thin air. In July 2017, he turned to South America and Huascaran in Peru's Cordillera Blanca. After about 5 days of climbing and route preparation, Rozov reached an exit around 6,725 meters, slightly below the 6,768 meters summit. He jumped in a wingsuit, descended roughly 2,000 vertical meters, and landed near 4,800 meters in the valley. Organizers later highlighted that no one had previously base jumped from that height in South America. The Continental project continued at full scale. Huascaran extended his record efforts into South America. By 2017, after the Huascaran expedition in Peru, his highest suitable peak on each continent, idea was clearly defined. Completed jumps included Elbrus in Europe, Olavtoppen in Antarctica, Kilimanjaro in Africa, Cho Oyu in Asia, and Huascaran in South America. Remaining targets were in North America and Australia. Expedition logistics involved local guides, high-altitude camps, and technical climbing teams for each site. Each objective followed the same pattern. One summit, one planned jump, focused on altitude and precision. Every planned jump meant a full-scale mountaineering campaign. In late 2017, Rozov joined an expedition to Ama Dablam in Nepal's Kumbhi region. The mountain reaches 6,812 meters and stands near major trekking routes to Everest. The plan combined a standard climbing route with a wingsuit-based jump from high on the peak. Team members manage fixed ropes, camps, and weather observations throughout the ascent. Ama Dablam had seen many climbing parties. Wingsuit base attempts from its upper slopes were far less common. The mission carried clear, documented risk for any jumper. On 11 November 2017, during a wingsuit jump from Ama Dablam at about 6812 meters, Rozov was involved in a fatal accident. Reports from the group stated that he struck the side of the mountain during the flight. Rescue teams and helicopters were deployed, but he did not survive. He was 52 years old. The incident ended his ongoing high-altitude project. News of his death spread quickly across climbing and base communities worldwide. In the months after the 2017 accident, across Russia and abroad, tributes summarized the scope of his career. Thousands of skydives, more than 8,000 base jumps, and numerous first descents from high summits. Commentaries listed Amun Brakk, Cerro Torre, Mont Blanc, Shivling, Kilimanjaro, Huascaran, Cho Oyu, and the Everest massif among his key achievements. Many pointed to his role in pushing base jumping into very high-altitude mountaineering terrain. The pattern was consistent. Technical climbs led directly to unique exits and records. His reputation came from publicly recorded jumps and summits. Rozov's actions moved from local Soviet-era skydiving to international competition and finally to complex expeditions linking big wall climbing with wingsuit-based jumps. He distinguished himself through altitude targets, first descents from major summits, and a structured highest suitable peak on each continent plan. The thin air, technical routes, and limited rescue options shaped both the risk and the visibility of his projects, leaving a documented record of high-altitude base progression. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next.